Today is Monday, February 20th, 2017, and today we got to talk about Donald Trump and the latest kerfuffle, the latest brouhaha from the fake news industrial complex, also known as the mainstream media. Now, what I'm talking about here, if you're not familiar, is kind of a campaign style rally he had in Florida over the weekend. It was on Saturday, where he spoke about Sweden and what's going on there. Now, the wording he used may be confusing to some people. He said something along the lines of, look at what happened last night in Sweden. That was just a piece of what he said, but it was not the whole thing. But we'll get to that a little bit later. Now, the media took that little piece and made it into a whole different story other than what it was. That's why I call them fake news. And that's why Donald Trump has said some things about the leaks being real, but the news being fake. It's because they'll take something that actually happened, a real thing, and they'll twist it in the reporting to make it a different thing. The same exact thing happened here. And this is really kind of, it's dangerous in many ways because you're not giving the American people the true reality of what's going on. But I digress. Getting back on topic here. Now, the mainstream media took that and they said, oh, well, it was a terror attack in Sweden last night, but that didn't happen. It was a fake attack. You know, this comes from many different outlets. We're going to talk about the USA Today article and video in a little bit, but it was many different outlets. You had the former prime minister of Sweden coming out and talking about it. They say, oh, what happened? But obviously he did not say anything about a terror attack, anything about terror in that sentence. What he was talking about was a Fox News report that came on last night, because that was Saturday and the report came out Friday. So he was talking about the news report that came out last night when he was on stage. He was not saying that some event happened last night in Sweden. But of course, the media is going to interpret it a certain kind of way to give you a false narrative. That's what they do. But I have a lot to say about it. I have a lot to say about Sweden in general. I've made a lot of different videos. I have one video that has over 1 million views as of right now, talking about the migrant crisis. I have a few videos about Sweden, and they get pretty big numbers because, unfortunately, in Sweden, it's almost like you're not allowed to speak about these things. Well, actually, you're not allowed. I think it may even be a crime. If I'm wrong about that, any Swedes that are watching, please correct me in the comments below. But basically, it's a taboo thing to talk about what's going on with the migration crisis, with the Islamic refugee crisis in Sweden. But before I go any further, before I get too deep into my analysis, what I want to do right now is play you 3 of the videos in question. Now, the first one is going to be from USA Today. Now, this is where the fake story came about, Trump saying that it was a fake story. You see, you'll see how they framed it. You'll see how they worded it. You'll see the images they use and whatnot. You'll see how they cut the video. And after that, I'll show you the actual statement that was said at the rally without any kind of editing. And then I'll show you the Fox News report in question, which features some Swedish police officers, and it also features a person who was there documenting what's going on in Sweden. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about the videos. We'll talk about what's going on in Sweden a little bit further. So without further ado, go ahead and roll it.
You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden. Sweden. Who would believe this? Sweden. They took in large numbers. They're having problems like they never thought possible. You look at what's happening in Brussels. You look at what's happening all over the world. Take a look at Nice. Take a look at Paris. We've allowed thousands and thousands of people into our country, and there was no way to vet those people. There was no documentation. There was no nothing. So we're going to keep our country safe.
Of arrivals from Muslim countries, perhaps no nation on earth is more committed to accepting foreign migrants and refugees than Sweden. 2016 alone, the country accepted more than 160,000 asylum seekers, despite having a population of less than 10 million people. Only 500 of these migrants were able to get jobs in Sweden. But if arrivals aren't able to work, they're at least able to commit crimes, quite a few of them, in fact. Ami Horowitz is a filmmaker. He went to Sweden to chronicle its refugee experience. Here's a short clip of what he found.
Do you see the violence really spreading across Sweden into the cities?
At least 1 or 2 times a week.
And let's say 5 years ago, how often would you say it was?
No, 3 times a year.
Really? The increase in this kind of crime is exponential.
I think we caught off guard. We didn't expect it to be so much increase.
Tucker spoke with the filmmaker earlier this week.
Ami, thanks a lot for coming on. So before you describe what you saw there, give us the overview. What is the justification within Sweden for importing this many migrants from other countries? Why are they doing it?
Well, in Sweden's own words, they consider themselves to be a humanitarian superpower, probably the only superpower that they would qualify for. So they feel that it's their moral duty to open their borders to all and any refugees that want to come to them.
So you've recently spent time there. Tell me if I'm overstating this. I don't think many people in Sweden think this is working.
All right, so you see what's going on there. You see what's happening. Now, this is really an unfortunate situation for Sweden. It really is, as far as just the overall climate of what's happening, the rape, the cover-ups, the political correctness. But before we get into that, let's talk about the videos. Now, you see the first one, totally dishonest. They cut off what he said in the actual, they cut off his statement so they could frame it as if he was saying something that he didn't say, right? See, no actual news outlet has him talking about any kind of attack, any kind of terror attack or anything like that. He did not use those words. So when you have the headline, Trump cites fake attack, that's false. That is fake news because he did not cite an attack at all. So to say that he cited a fake attack is fake itself. And what he said was true. He was talking about the news report that came on last night, that night when he spoke. And Sweden is going through a lot of different problems. Sweden has a lot of different problems because of the migration crisis. They've allowed a lot of people in from third world countries, and they're experiencing a lot of problem. The same way that Germany, the same way that France, the same way that many other liberal standing countries in Europe have. It's not the entire Europe. I mean, all of Europe is facing a problem, yes, but not so much in Eastern Europe, not so much in Poland, not so much in the Baltic states, not so much in a place like Ukraine, Bulgaria, maybe a little bit in Bulgaria, but not really, not Hungary, and definitely not Russia, absolutely not Russia, which is in Europe, but at the same time it's not, but I digress. My point is that there are very specific countries that are facing the problem, and a lot of it can be rested on the shoulders of the politicians. The politicians are not doing the correct thing by the Swedish people. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's not about their laws or whatever. These are documented facts about what's happening. They'll try to say, oh, it's because of Sweden and their laws. They have very strict laws about rape. Anything can be considered rape, but that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even matter if that's the case. If that's the case, so what? If you come to a person's home, if you come to a person's country, you must abide by their rules. You can't say that the host country is wrong for having rules against rape that somehow you just can't follow if you're coming from a third world country. It doesn't make any sense. If you come to a place, respect them and respect their laws. That's it. But really the solution to all that would be to not allow them to come to the country at all. Help them when they're part of the world if you want to be humanitarian. Sweden, in many ways, in many parts of Europe, not just Sweden, but more than anything, Sweden, because they have now become the rape capital of Europe. The politicians and people that are on the left, the far leftists, the SJWs, the overall Tumblr culture that exists in Sweden. Shout out to the angry foreigner for that, also known as Inarg Blattetalar. Hopefully I said that correctly. Now, if you're Swedish, that may kind of be like curse words to you. But if you look him up, the angry foreigner, I'll place a link to him in the box below. You'll understand why he calls himself that, right? He's a guy from Bosnia that moved to Sweden when he was a very young child as a refugee. And he's speaking against the refugee crisis in Sweden from a common sense perspective, telling you things that the mainstream media in Europe and also over here in the United States will not tell you. Before Donald Trump said anything about Sweden, there was never any real discussion about Sweden in the mainstream media. Shout out to Uncle Hotel. I saw his video too. He said it could be some 4D chess going on. I think that's true, but I think sometimes he's just so good at what he does that's unintentional. I don't think he really meant to say that as far as 4D chess, but at the same time, it works out that way because anytime Trump says anything that could be considered wrong, that could be considered wrong think, the media hops on it right away, but they don't even really know that it's a landmine that they stepped on. And that's the case here with Sweden, because now you've opened up Pandora's box. You open up a whole new world into what's going on in Sweden. Rather than be trying to be worried about, oh, he said last night, nothing happened last night. It was an award show, this and the third. Now people are going to look to guys like me, guys like the Angry Foreigner, Uncle Hotep, and everybody else on YouTube. They're going to look on Google, and they're going to see what's going on in Sweden. If I say Google rape capital of Europe, and then they see article after article after article after article about Sweden being the rape capital of Europe, now they're going to say, what's going on? And why is that happening? Oh, it's because they invited a lot of Islamic refugees from third world countries en masse to the country, that they cannot adhere to the rules of the place that they're at. Maybe we should not go down that route. Maybe we should not have 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 refugees come over here just unabated. Maybe, just maybe, we should close up that border on the south so they don't come in illegally that way. Just maybe. I think the media will most certainly get away from this story because they did not know that it was a landmine that they stepped on. They don't know about the woman that was raped in Sweden by some so-called migrants from Afghanistan that was streamed on Facebook Live. They don't know about all the young girls, I'm talking like prepubescent, 12-year-old and below, who were sexually assaulted at Parken, which is like a music festival in Sweden. They don't know about the no-go zones in Rinkeby. They don't know about Malmö. They don't know about Stockholm. They don't know about Gotland. They don't know about all these places where you have just an overabundance of Islamic refugee, so-called refugee rape. They don't know about the adult men who pose as children that go to school with girls that are in middle school. Look at this guy right here. Does he look 17? I mean, look at his shave. I mean, he probably has one of those safety razors. I mean, his shave is just spot on. He has like a 12 o'clock shadow right now. You understand what I'm saying? This guy is obviously a full-grown adult. And this is a case that happens all the time. And just like the Angry Foreigner said, in Sweden, it's considered racist to question somebody's age. Somebody says, hey, I'm 16. Meanwhile, they obviously look like they're probably about 30 years old minimum. So you can't ask, hey, wait a minute, where's your actual papers? Where's your documentation to say how old you are? And that goes more to what Trump said about not having any kind of real way to vet these people, not having any kind of real way to understand who these people are. You don't know how old they are, where they come from, if they have any infectious diseases, if they are, a sex offender, any kind of criminal record. And by the way, did you know that about 40% of all HIV/AIDS patients in Europe are foreigners? Don't say that, oh, Sweden has very tough laws on rape, so if you're a foreigner, it can be any little thing and you'll get charged with it. Well, why don't Swedes that are already there get charged the same way? Why can't a person that comes from a different place behave the same as people that are already there in that nation? When you're in Rome, do as the Romans. I can't go to Afghanistan or whatever Istan and just do whatever I want to do. If you're a woman, you can't be around there with no headscarf on, no hijab, niqab, burqa, whatever it is. You must adhere to their standards. So why is it any different when they come to a first world place? Why is it any different when they come to a European place? And the reason why this is important as I close is because the same people that are over there committing the rapes live on Facebook, molesting little girls, beheading people, gang raping the woman in the wheelchair, 6 deep at a so-called asylum center in Sweden, which is there to help them. These people, and the boy rape as well. There was a case where an Afghan boy, a 13, 14-year-old boy, was raped by other Afghan boys in the forest at knife point. That happened. These people are coming to your city next. And that's why we can't have them to come over here. People on the left, they want to be so humanitarian. They want to say, we're so liberal. We want to be able to open our doors, open our borders to everybody. But the reality is, when you do that, you're inviting all kind of trouble. Even Bashar al-Assad, who is the president of Syria, has said that they will import terrorists among the refugees. When I say they, I don't mean Bashar al-Assad and his so-called regime. I'm talking about ISIS, Daesh, whatever you want to call them, Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra, whatever it is. They're going to import terrorists and the refugees. And beyond the terrorists, I'm talking about people that just can't get along. It's one thing to have a terror attack. It's something else to have people that come over here and engage in taharush, which is like organized sexual assault. That's not a terror attack, is it? But at the same time, do you want that? Do you want your 12-year-old daughter to go to a school with a fully grown man who pretends to be 13 but is really 26, engaging in taharush on her? Is that what you want? I think not. So I think we should take Sweden and Nice and Brussels and everywhere else in Europe where they have imported a lot of terror, a lot of rape. We should look at them as an example of what not to do going forward. So what do you think? Do you think the media is just being the same old media it has been over the past year or two? A dying format, trying to get clicks, trying to get views, trying to get ratings by any means necessary? Making up stories, talking about Trump said it was a terror attack when he said no such thing. He did not say the word attack. He did not say the phrase terror attack. That was a pure lie. Or do you think that Donald Trump is just a buffoon? He's an idiot. He's incompetent because the word he used was taken out of context. I mean, really, if you heard what he said in context, it made sense. You may be kind of confused as what happened last night, but all you got to do is ask the question because he did not say any particular incident. And Donald Trump clarified it on his Twitter. That's why I like him having Twitter as I close through this time. I like him having Twitter because it's a way for him to be able to easily explain what's going on outside of the biased eye and the peer view and the curation of the mainstream media, also known as the fake news industrial complex. So that's all I got for it. Whatever your comments are, let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.
We've allowed thousands and thousands of people into our country, and there was no way to vet those people. There was no documentation. There was no nothing.